What if you woke up one day to find your country's government buildings seized by its own army? How would you react? This is not a hypothetical scenario we're discussing, but the reality that dawned on the Empire of Japan on February 26, 1936. A reality that was the culmination of a series of events and circumstances that had been brewing in the background for some time. The Japan of the early 1930s was a bubbling cauldron of political and social unrest. The nation was grappling with a multitude of challenges: sickness, unemployment, and epidemics. A general sense of dissatisfaction pervaded the air, particularly among the young officers in the army. They believed that the liberal and democratic elements of the government were weak and ineffective, unable to meet these challenges in a timely and effective manner. These bright young men, full of vigor and passion, yearned for change. They were eager to reform the system, to restore Japan to its former glory. Their frustration with the perceived incompetence of the government and the military was mounting. They felt that their beloved nation was being led astray, that the voluntary system was on the decline. And they were not alone in their sentiments. Their discontent was shared by many in Japan, who saw the government's handling of the crises as less than satisfactory. And so, they banded together, these young officers, forming a group that would come to be known as the February 26 Visitors. Their mission was clear: to seize control of the government and the military, to institute reforms, to steer Japan back onto the path of prosperity. They believed that drastic measures were necessary to bring about the change they desired. But as we know, their attempt to seize control would not go as planned. Their bold move would result in a tightening of Japan's military and political controls, a purge of the army ranks, and a shift in the nation's internal politics that would have lasting effects. This was the simmering pot that was Japan on the eve of the February 26 coup. Imagine the shock of the citizens as government and military buildings were seized by their own army. On that fateful day, February 26, 1936, the city of Tokyo woke up to an unsettling reality. A group of young officers, disillusioned with what they saw as a weak and ineffective government, had taken matters into their own hands. They were bright, they were bold, and they were determined to change the course of their country's future. The coup plotters, who had been carefully planning their actions, struck at dawn. They swiftly moved through the city, taking control of several key government and military buildings. The Prime Minister's residence, the Ministry of War, and the Tokyo Metropolitan Police Headquarters were among those seized. These were not random targets. Each one was a strategic choice, aimed at crippling the government's ability to respond. As the sun rose over Tokyo, the coup plotters had already made their move. High-ranking officials, including the Inspector General of Military Education and the Minister of Finance, were taken hostage. Their capture was a clear message to the government. The young officers were serious about their intentions. But the coup was more than a show of force. For the plotters, it was a desperate attempt to steer Japan away from liberalism and democracy, which they saw as the root of the country's problems. They believed that a stronger, more authoritarian government was the solution to the challenges facing Japan, including disease, unemployment, and social unrest. As the day unfolded, the plotters tried to rally support from the army and the people. They passionately argued their cause, believing that their actions were for the greater good of Japan. They envisioned a future where the country would rise above its struggles and reclaim its place in the world. Yet, despite their determination, the coup plotters faced an uphill battle. Their actions had taken the city by surprise, and many were unsure of what to make of the situation. The army, while sympathetic to their cause, was hesitant to openly support them. The people, too, were divided. Some saw the plotters as heroes, standing up against a government they believed was failing them. Others saw them as traitors, threatening the stability of their country. By the end of the day, it was clear that the coup was not going as planned. The plotters had failed to secure the widespread support they had hoped for. The government, while shaken, was not toppled. The army, while sympathetic, did not rally to their cause. Despite their efforts, the coup plotters failed to garner the wide support they had hoped for. And as the sun set on that tumultuous day, the fate of the coup hung in the balance. Little did the plotters know, their actions would have far-reaching consequences, shaping the course of Japan's history in the years to come. In the wake of the failed coup, Japan was a country in turmoil. The immediate aftermath was a whirlwind of swift reactions and drastic measures. The world watched, as freedom of movement was swiftly controlled and political and military rules tightened their grip on the nation. It was as if Japan was holding its breath, waiting for the storm to pass. In the shadows of this uncertainty, a purge began within the Japanese army. The coup may have failed, but its echoes resonated in the quiet halls and busy courtyards of military bases. The officers who had dared to challenge the status quo, those bright young minds who had seen a different future for Japan, found themselves in the crosshairs. They had gambled and lost, and the price was steep. Many of these officers, the very same who had planned and led the coup, were executed. It was a stark message to anyone who dared to challenge the established order. Others faced severe punishment, their careers and lives forever marred by their actions. And some were expelled from military service, their dreams of serving their country shattered in the aftermath of their failed coup. This purge was not merely a reaction to the coup, but a calculated move to consolidate power. With the removal of these dissenting voices, the military and political leaders could strengthen their hold on the country. They could shape Japan in their image without the threat of internal rebellion. In the midst of this turmoil, Japan was changing. The failed coup had exposed the fractures within the society, the dissatisfaction with the status quo, and the longing for change. The leaders had tried to silence these voices, but the echoes of their rebellion continued to reverberate. The February 26 coup was a turning point in Japan's history. It was a catalyst that accelerated the changes that would shape the nation in the years to come. It was a reflection of the internal struggles within the country, struggles that would continue to simmer beneath the surface. In the aftermath of the coup, Japan was forever changed. The failed coup of February 26th was not just a one-off event. It left a lasting impact on Japan. This impact was felt not only in the immediate aftermath, but also in the years and decades that followed. The February 26 coup has been etched into the annals of history as a turning point, a moment that forever changed Japan's political and military landscapes. In the immediate aftermath, Japan's military and political structures tightened. The freedom of movement, a right once enjoyed by the citizens, was quickly curbed, marking the rise of a more restrictive regime. A massive purge ensued within the ranks of the Japanese army. Many of the officers who had dared to challenge the status quo were either executed, punished, or expelled from military service. This sent a clear message to the rest of the nation: dissent would not be tolerated. But the effects of the coup didn't stop there. The failed attempt served as a stark reminder of the weakness and inefficiencies that plagued the liberal and democratic factions of the government. This, in turn, led to a shift in Japan's political climate. The liberals and democrats, once seen as the solution to Japan's woes, were now viewed as part of the problem. As a result, the nation began to drift towards a more authoritarian rule, moving away from the democratic ideals it had once embraced. This shift in political ideology played a significant role in shaping Japan's military and political development in the years leading up to World War II. The nation, once seen as a beacon of democracy in the East, was now on a path towards militarization and authoritarian rule. The February 26 coup, though a failed attempt, had set the stage for this transformation. In the years that followed, Japan would continue to grapple with the consequences of this failed coup. Its effects would be felt in the country's internal politics, its military strategies, and its relations with the outside world. It was a defining moment that continues to shape Japan's history, even today. The February 26 coup, though a failed attempt, forever shaped Japan's political and military landscape. The February 26 coup was a pivotal moment in Japan's history. It was an audacious attempt led by a band of earnest but disillusioned officers, seeking to bring about change in a Japan riddled with maladies of all sorts. Their actions shook Tokyo to its core, as government and military buildings were seized and key figures taken hostage. Yet, their hopes of rallying widespread support fell short, their goals remaining unfulfilled. The aftermath was swift and severe. Freedom was curtailed, the military and political spheres tightened their reins, and a purge within the army's ranks ensued. The officers implicated in the coup faced grim fates. Their military careers abruptly ended. This event, though unsuccessful, cast a long shadow on the political and military landscape of pre-World War Japan, influencing the country's internal dynamics for years to come. Remember, history is not just about the past. It's about understanding how the past shapes the present and the future. Until next time, keep exploring history.